This was my second pull session of the week. I started off with single arm dumbbell rows, 4 sets, 6 to 12 reps. As you can see, I stand with my feet roughly about the same width and the same distance back. I don't like stand with a staggered foot position as I feel my hips try to rotate through the movement. I don't use my thumbs in this exercise either, as I feel like my arms are to do more pulling. And as you can see, I lift my chest up a little bit towards the end just to feel a better squeeze in my lat as I drive the movement back through my elbow towards my hip. The second exercise was then a distance handle with unique grips or universal grips. Unfortunately, due to the length of these and with the machine, I have to sit on the floor. I can't sit in the machine and trap myself how you would normally conventionally. I ensure that the distance of the grips are at least shoulder width or just outside my shoulder width apart. I did 4 sets, 6 to 12 reps. Slow and controlled as best I can. I really started to fatigue towards the end of the set, and as you can see, my chest started to collapse forward a little bit, but this is kind of reduced by the assistance of that seat in my way. Then I supersetted this exercise, and I went straight into lat pull-throughs. With the lat pull-through, as you can see with the attachment I'm just placing now, is more of a fabric handle attachment. This is so I can keep my hands with my thumbs kind of facing the ceiling. So I'm driving through the pine end of my hand through down into the ground. And as I'm driving my hands towards my hips, I'm allowing my chest to rise up and trying to fully shorten my lat at the top of the movement as I'm allowing my arms to come out slightly wide as well. With the lat pullovers, I don't tend to try and stay static. I try and move through the full range. So as you can see, when I'm bent over, it's at its longest range. And when I'm at the bottom, when my hands are near my hips, it's at the shortest range. Third exercise then was a universal handle grip seated row, setting the handles just outside shoulder width. Allow my palms to rotate through the movement and feel a good engagement, especially with the mid back. Making sure that my elbows are driving back. I'm not pulling with my hands, but when my hands are concerned, as I am pulling, my thumbs are part of the movement, but then as I'm releasing back forward, I allow my thumbs to come out of the movement. I did 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps with this exercise. Try not to lean back too much. You don't want to create much of inertia with your lower back before your upper back is doing the majority of the work. Then I went into a single handle lat pull down. This exercise I actually struggle a little bit with. This is why I start with my weaker side first, because I'm only going to allow my stronger side to match what my weaker side can manage and achieve under control. Normally I would probably lean back a little bit further or sit a little bit further back in the seat in this, but in the position that I felt that I had the best engagement on this day, I sat a little bit closer forward. I did 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps, really focusing on driving that elbow back and down, squeezing my lat as hard as I can and slowly releasing back up, not all the way, just as far as the lat will allow me while maintaining tension on the lat. I don't want my shoulders or my rear delts to take over from this movement. So I'm just making sure that I'm only going as far up and as far back as I can feel my lat engage with this. The weight is quite light in comparison to my other exercises, but it's just to help facilitate that feel and engagement. Then I moved into a double cable shrug. For me, this is one of the optimal ways to do shrugs. So I set cables at the very bottom, and I'm not just pulling my traps back, but I'm also squeezing them in as well. So I'm kind of trying to use my traps to its fullest extent, where you're pulling backwards, upwards and inwards at the same time. Normally I go quite heavy in this movement because I deadlift quite heavy for my body weight, that I find a good engagement. I did 3 sets to 15 reps. Then we moved on to arms, and I did a double handle cable front curl, making sure that I try and keep my elbows as controlled as possible. As I start to fatigue through the set, you'll see my elbows raise up a little bit more and a little bit more. My form break down ever so slightly. This was the last set of these I did. I did 4 sets of 6 to 15 reps, trying to reduce the speed of that negative as much as I can, really feel it lengthen and stretch out, and just make sure I feel as much disgusting tension in my biceps as I possibly can, trying to reduce as much shoulder flexion as I possibly can. But as fatigue sets in, obviously you'll see that my shoulders kind of get that little bit more involved than they should be. But this was the last set. Then we went into straight bar reverse curls. With these, I include my thumbs in the grip because I want my forearms and my brachialis and my brachii to be engaged with this exercise. Trying to keep my elbows back as best I can, not allowing me to swing this weight up. And keep as much control as I possibly can, especially on the down. Bearing in mind that your grip may fatigue quicker than your bicep, so just take that into consideration. I did 3 sets of 6 to 15 reps, and making sure that you emphasize much more on lowering phase and keeping as much control as possible. Finally, then we moved into dumbbell hammer curls. I decided to do these seated because I wanted to kind of prevent any excessive amount of swinging in this movement. And as you can see at the bottom of each rep, I allow my arms fully down to the point where I can actually contract my tricep, knowing that my bicep then is fully lengthened by my tricep being able to contract at the bottom. I did 3 sets of 6 to 15 reps. Once again, just like the cable curls I first did, that as fatigue sets in, a bit of swinging and a bit of swaying does get involved. I am trying to keep it as reduced as possible to make sure that I'm getting as much effective work on the bicep as I possibly can. But as fatigue is setting in, it is going to break the form down a little bit. But as long as you're not swinging excessively and it's just a little bit of assistance or creating a little bit of inertia to do last couple of reps, that's fine. And we finished off on some pretty poor posing by myself once again.